guys, I'm Isabella and today we're going to be talking about the timeline for Project Poetry and essentially how long it took from the initial idea until the finished product. Okay, so Project Poetry is technically a code name for the book title because I haven't actually revealed the title yet. That's coming out next week, I believe, as of when this video is going to be posting. And yeah, so Project Poetry has been with me for quite a few months now, and I have literally filmed basically every second of this journey, and it's going to be in a series currently titled under Project Poetry, but will be changed to the actual title of the book once it's out. So the initial idea actually came to me literally when I woke up one morning, and that was the 26th of July 2023. So that was when I first got the initial idea, and basically this initial idea just started from the blurb, which is so surreal to me. And technically the blurb that I thought of back then has actually been, I guess, edited quite a few times, so it's no longer that blurb exactly, but it's pretty similar, so I'm not going to be saying it or reading it out to you just now because you will be getting a blurb reveal very soon. This was basically the initial idea and the initial start of this entire collection, and the first thing I did was message one of my close friends and also the cover designer and illustrator of this book. Her name is Crystal and she is literally the best, and we kind of started brainstorming and discussing. She doesn't necessarily help me brainstorm my books, but she does help with the cover ideas, and I guess that kind of like helps me think of ideas in general. But basically all I did was tell her it's going to be a cathartic and self-reflective poetry collection about the start to the end of high school and the struggles. And oh my goodness, how that story has changed from that is insane. I actually turned it into more of a like I guess romantic kind of story, but it wasn't really romanticizing anything. It was more like, I guess, really just narrowing down what I wanted to, like, I guess, have as the main theme, and that ended up being self-love. So the whole self-reflective cathartic thing became self-love. From there we kind of talked about the title and the blurb because I obviously told her, and we were talking about a blackmail kind of thing. That was the initial idea, and the blurb was originally the opening line of this entire collection, which to me seems so strange and crazy now because it's now the blurb. But yeah, it was really interesting, and she told me that what she imagined was a very fancy but dark diary lock type of book, and that started making me think a little more. So I didn't technically start writing the first draft for a really long time. So after the initial idea on the 26th of July, I didn't really think about this book as much or like do anything necessarily for it until the 28th, I believe. So on the 28th is when I actually started writing, I suppose, all the poetry titles and like the section titles that I wanted, and that was pretty easy for me. It only took like less than 30 minutes and I basically had everything done, but I didn't find it easy to start writing the book necessarily until many weeks later. And I'm probably exaggerating, but it feels really long now. So on the 3rd of August, I created playlists for the entire book and each section, and my friend Talia and also my younger sister gave me this really cool idea where each poem had like a song associated to it. So on the 3rd of August I spent that entire day just doing that. Nothing interesting, nothing intense, and I didn't really start writing until the 4th of August. Well, I tried to start writing. I mostly did like 1 to 2 poems, and that was when we first started draft 1, which still blows my mind that it has come so far. And also I just want to give you a little context. It is January 13th 2024 when I'm filming this. So we started draft 1 on the 4th of August 2023, and draft 1 took so much time. I didn't anticipate it to take me until like the end of September. It was not called for, nor did I anticipate for it, and it wasn't really like, I could have controlled it a little more if I wrote a bit more consistently, but I didn't. So I'm actually really happy with how draft 1 turned out, like considering the entire like amount of time it took me to write it. And since there was only like 55 poems initially, that is still strange for me to think that it took me that long, especially when I used to be able to smash out so many poems so quickly. But anyway, so towards the end of September, I originally was going to go into like a little break to like give myself some space from the book, but then I ended up going into this super long break and I didn't start draft 2 or even read through the book around the early weeks of October. And main reason for this was I had reached out to my beta readers for the first round of beta reading, and I told them, I'm going to get this to you on this day. I think it was the 25th or 26th. No, it was the 26th because I gave them 5 days. It was the 26th of October and I hadn't touched this book. I had not even read through it. I completely forgot the story by then. And all I did was say, you know what, I'm going to give you my book on this date. And that was the first start of like me actually working on it. But even though I told them this message like many weeks in advance, what did I do? I didn't even touch the book until like a week before the date I was going to send it to them. So draft 2 has always been my least favorite draft. So that is my main reason for putting it like off to the last minute. So it was probably not the smartest thing to do, but I didn't work on draft 2, and also I had my HSC during this time, so it was also really intense, and I should have been studying a lot more than I should have been revising my book in general. So I focused on my education more than my career. Basically, read through draft 1, made a bunch of notes, edited draft 2. It was more like a big developmental edit kind of thing, and that took me a really short amount of time, surprisingly, even though it usually takes me a lot longer, like we're talking a couple of weeks. But I managed to do that in like 5 hours or so, and I was so amazed. And obviously I know this is different from like novel writing because it is poetry and it's a lot shorter, but it felt strange to like have draft 2 basically done in like 5 hours from when I started. But I also felt really inspired, and I didn't give myself a break between draft 2 and 3. I immediately jumped into draft 3, did all of that, and I sent it to my friends who were my beta readers on the 24th or the 25th, one of those days of October 2023, and they returned it back to me on the 30th of October, and I was basically ready to continue working. Now the funny thing is, I didn't touch this book until November 30th. I initially, like on October 30th, I literally just went through all the like really easy like proofreading and copy edit suggestions they left. Did all of those, but all the actual developmental stuff they left, I didn't touch for a whole month. So fast forward to November 30th, 2023, I finally went back into my little editing cave and started working on the holistic edits for Project Poetry. And this was when I started to question myself as a writer, my abilities to like stay resilient, and also if I could actually make this work as a career. So obviously it is really hard in a lot of industries, and I think every industry has their own like industry requirement and industry standard. So it was kind of strange, I guess, for me to like wonder if this was the right path for me, where I would probably do that with every other career. So I went through these like moments of like self-doubt and imposter syndrome, since that is really common, and I didn't actually necessarily expect myself to get that, but oh my goodness, that was an intense period of time. So I spent a good while editing, let's say, for Project Poetry after my beta feedback kind of came through, but then I managed to get, I guess, my book ready for Project Poetry Draft 4, and also to send it to my next round of beta readers early December-ish. It wasn't as early as I anticipated because I originally wanted to send it to them mid-November, and unfortunately I had a trip and then my birthday and then my formal and everything kind of just like pushed it back, and also I wasn't writing that time either, so I didn't touch it until like 1st of December almost, and that was when I kind of like rush through the entire editing process. Obviously, I did take my time to like thoroughly do this. I didn't like just rush through it because I wanted to send it to the next group of betas. But I was really like, I felt pretty stagnant with my writing, and I was like, I don't know how I can further improve this alone. So that's when I was like, okay, I think it's time we bring in the next group of betas. And I messaged them and I'm like, okay, could you like start in like 3 days basically? And I gave them 5 days as well. And I sent it to them on the 10th. Well, technically it was the 10th because it was 1 a.m. So I sent it to them on the 10th of December, 2023, and I basically waited until the 18th of December for them all to send it back to me. So there was quite a big gap in between, and yeah, it was really hard getting through this round of edits and this draft in general. Draft 4 was, honestly, I think I took draft 4 a lot harder than I did draft 2. So I didn't really like that, but it was how it was, and honestly I'm so glad that I actually made it through draft 4 because I was like certain that this was where this book was ending and this was where I was going to leave it and like never touch it again. So I'm glad I managed to get through that and actually just, I guess, persevered and stayed resilient even though I started to question myself and my abilities as a writer. So I spent about a week or so editing draft 4's like edits from my betas in. It was intense, but honestly it enhanced the story so well, and I would not have traded that experience as hard as it was for anything because I love my book so much more now, and it honestly feels so much more complete and so much more, I guess, raw and emotional. So okay, this is where things get a bit confusing. So after I edited draft 4 and finished that, it was about, well, it wasn't like close to Christmas, but it was like the 22nd of December. I was busy doing my copy edits and proofreads and just in general questioning if I should send it to my final beta reader for like the final overall check. And I didn't want to at first because it was going to be during Christmas and I felt bad, but they are honestly the best beta readers anyone could ask for and the best critique partners as well. So I sent it to her and she got it back in time, literally so quick. She got it back to me so early and she gave it back to me on the 23rd of December. Copy editing and proofreading like by myself throughout the whole process, so from draft 3 all the way to draft 5, and draft 5 was like my last beta reader feedback draft. I also went through a lot of copy editing phases. I spent a lot of time doing passive voice, adverbs, but most of the adverbs I kept in because it just like added more to the flow of the story, and also I'm trying to recreate the voice of like a teenager, so I had to keep most of those in. So I only removed some of them. I also did a lot of like simplification and just like removed anything that was not really concise. So that was mostly that, and I sent it to my proof editors. So I didn't hire a proofreader in general, but I got a bunch of my friends to help me out with proofreading, and I basically sent it to them on the 26th of December, also known as Boxing Day, and they all got it back to me between the 27th to the 31st roughly. So I edited every single feedback I got into my book on Christmas Eve. And I know it's crazy, and yes, I am probably a workaholic, I suppose, by definition, but I was so happy and I am literally amazed by how amazing these people are, and so thankful that they were able to help me, and so sorry that I just hit the camera. Okay, so on Christmas Day, I spent that day formatting. And by formatting, I meant learning to format my book. I actually had an emotional attachment on it on Christmas Eve, and my sister had to deal with me being extremely crazy over nothing because I just didn't want my book to release so soon. Like, it felt too unreal and I was not ready for it. So that was the main situation. But also I'm really happy because I managed to get myself to learn how to format in Microsoft Word, and that was an experience in itself. That took all the way to the 28th of December, and it was a long time. just until I managed to figure out how to do like the simplest things. My cover was basically being done at that time, and I literally messaged my friend and I was like, okay, so the book is 88 pages long total with my front and back matter. So here's the template for the cover. Do you think we could like finish this for the 5th of January? And she is literally the best. Thank you so much, Crystal, for cooperating with me during this intense time, and also for just helping me entirely with this project. And she managed to get everything done, illustrated, that I had needed for the release and also for the book in general. And it literally took a huge weight off my shoulders, and it literally made me feel so much more confident that everything was going to go smoothly and everything would be done on time. And by everything I mean like the entire like submission process. And also I'm still waiting on a proof copy as of today, but even if it doesn't get here, at least I know that the book is good to go. Crystal actually got the cover back to me on the 29th of December, and literally that was so awesome and so sweet of her. And this is where the next situation started, and that was formatting the ebook. So originally I thought you could convert a Word document to an EPUB doc. I don't know why I said doc, it's literally an EPUB. So I thought you could do that. And turns out you can't, and it's a lot harder, and most of the software you need to use is paid. So originally wrote in Google Docs. So I basically took my Word document that I had, I threw it into a Google Doc and just tried to download it as an EPUB. And while it worked, for some reason only one page showed up, even though all the poems were listed up there, and I didn't know where they were because they just didn't come up, and I was confused and I didn't know what to do. So I kind of panicked, and then I created a draft to digital account, and basically that's how I formatted my ebook. But draft to digital, and well, mostly me, I struggled because the poem stanzas weren't showing up, the title page was all messed up, the back matter was broken and it wasn't doing anything, and the entire like picture, all the pictures that like I added, they all kind of like lost their position and like placement in general, and I didn't know what to do. So I spent over 8 hours in one day learning how to format my Word doc for draft to digital, and I'm so glad at the end it looked gorgeous. And I probably wished I had done this a lot earlier, but oh my goodness, I was so happy once it was done. And I'm literally so glad I went through all these experiences now, because it's probably best that I get these like out of the way, because I don't want to keep experiencing this or have to experience this further down my career, because I know I will probably lose my mind. After I finally managed to get my draft digital file for my EPUB to cooperate and work, I uploaded my book on the 4th of January 2024, and that was it. And then this is where our next little major issue actually came up, and that was when I noticed that my copyright page was outdated. And by outdated, I mean I had the wrong copyright page template for Australian books. So it was the worst situation to happen ever, because I literally just almost approved my eProof file, and obviously that is like a major thing. But I was so glad I found out about the issue beforehand. I rejected that eProof, and then I had to wait another 3 business days, which took a while. Then I resubmitted the book on the 8th of January, and now the book is basically available to retailers. And it's so strange to think that this book has literally gone out and it's like available for pre-order. And that is literally the entire publishing timeline of Project Poetry, which is so weird. I'm not gonna go really hardcore on marketing until the release of the title, blurb, cover, and release date in general. So stay tuned for that, and until then, stay healthy, stay happy, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!